Hello, this is Gavin Hamilton. I'm a trustee of the Lesbian and Gay Archives of New Zealand, Te Pūranga Takatapui o Aotearoa. And in this short video, I'm going to be demonstrating the first part of the important QA steps that we're asking volunteers to help us with during the index cards transcribathon that we're running between the 10th and the 24th of July in 2021. I'm going to be switching over shortly to the From the Page tool. I'm starting from an assumption that you've, as a user, you've already got some familiarity with the From the Page website and have perhaps been involved in correcting index cards, correcting the OCR text that's been recognised through a computer process, whereby pictures of our index cards from the card catalogue have been digitised and the text recognised and available for correction. So we'll switch over to From the Page. So here's the From the Page tool. I've logged in as myself, or rather as the LAGANZ administrator. So I'm using the LAGANZ account, and so you might use Find a Project or your dashboard link. LAGANZ gets you there quickly. We're working with the LAGANZ Finding Aids collection. And from here, you might pick a group of cards in which to start correcting, start doing the QA steps. I have a couple of cards ready to demonstrate, so I'm going to switch over to these two cards here. This is a card from the Octavos series. When you're doing your QA, you do need to be in the correct tab, so stay in this mode. And that's because it's particularly important to pay close attention to the line numbering in the text here. So if we compare what I've noticed immediately is that there are some lines, they've still got the red dot at the bottom and some lines where there's no text and we need to close those up. But if you're in the overview tab, those sort of issues are not immediately obvious. So it's important to be in the correct tab as you're doing your QA. So the focus of this session is on standardization. What are the common things that we would want you to help us standardize the notation on? It's not correctors' fault if they haven't been able to sometimes distinguish between a comma and a full stop. We know that there are problems with legibility, but the standardization does help us in the long run because we can detect common patterns in the text and use those patterns to help us expand on certain elements. I'll give you an example of that in a short while. But my immediate focus here, what I go to straight away, is just to clean up those redundant lines at the bottom to get rid of that red dot. The accession number notation here is using a standard notation, capital A, CC, full stop, space, capital N, lowercase o, full stop, and then a space, and then the number. So that's looking good. From the top, it's important to just do a double check that they've still got all of the call number information in there. This one is missing a lowercase q at the bottom, which is an indication that this item is a quarto potentially. So it's not the end of the world that got missed, but if you can recognize that missing bit of handwritten text, it should go back in. The next line, or the main entry, we'll use the spelling here, Mikkel space Angelo, but that after the surname there should really be a comma. This is fine on its own line. It's the English translation of a keyword. I'm just sort of clicking at the end of the row and looking for trailing spaces, getting rid of those. And this line, we're just checking that all of these two lines of text do run together as one line, one numbered line. If it looks like this, for example, where that's essentially one line of text, but it's split or breaking across two numbered lines, we need to get to the end of that line, type in a space, and then delete until we can see that it's been consolidated on one line. Here, in the next line, we've got the publication imprint or the publishing information. It is using a standard notation, which is a colon following the place of publication, but there should be a comma after, a space after the comma there. Another standardization issue in the line where we've got the information about the extent or size of the work. So notice there that it's 112 pages, and the shorthand that's been used is ILL for illustrated, but it's more common to use ILLUS, ILLUS, full stop, and that's fine. So that's looking good there. I'll just zoom in at this point, make it a bit easier to see. So then in the subject headings, there's been a little bit of kind of hasn't been completed here. So this Italian poetry subject item should have the number 1 at the front. It's the first subject. Then we've got another main entry for the title and the Roman numerals, so Arabic numerals for subjects, and then Roman numerals for main entries, usually titles of books or series, and or the names of people and organizations. So here we've just got a little bit of, it's just become a little bit mucked up. So number 2, Jennings, Elizabeth, that appears to be missing from here. So Jennings, comma, Elizabeth, and then her year of birth follows. Doesn't need to have a comma after her first name, but there shouldn't be a space before the hyphen. So year of the birth, no space, hyphen. But this does describe her role in relation to this particular work. So she's a contributor to this book, and her role should be described there as an adjunct to that. Again, no comma necessary, but transla or transl there is short for translator. So because that's an abbreviation, we do want the full stop at the end. With these subject headings, it's not compulsory for there to be a full stop at the end. Our processes later on will ignore a full stop if there is one present there, unless it's part of one of these abbreviations. So I've just done so what I've been focusing on here is just standardizing the notation for some of these elements and ensuring that long lines, long titles, or long sort of paragraphs of extra descriptive information are not breaking across multiple lines, and fixed some abbreviations, checked the standard notation here for the subject headings and that they're in the right order. Number 1 in the Arabic numerals, that's correct for a subject term. Main entry headings are in Roman numerals and they're in the right sequence, 1, 2, and 3. And between the full stop and the first letter, there's just one space. So I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to click Save here. So what I've focused here on the QA is just on the standardization steps for this card. There is another final step that will be explained in another part of the QA process in a separate video. So I'll move on to another card that needs correcting. So here's one from the pamphlets series. And the person that's done this one, I think, might have perhaps been one of our international contributors, because I suspect he or she has not read the instructions that appear down the bottom of the page here. They've focused on reproducing what they can see on the card with the spacing, and haven't kind of addressed the line breaks and so on. So, and they've also left in the shelf list information. So we're going to clean that up, bring all this information up onto one line. The publishing imprint here is on one line, but they had added extra spaces. All this notation here is standard. This one here, there's a space before the colon, and that's certainly visible in the index card. So I can't blame this person for reproducing it as he or she saw it, but what we would like to do is standardize on no spaces before colons. And we've got the right publishing and print information, colon after place of publication, comma after the name of the publisher, and a full stop after the year of publication. Next line, 64 pages, P dot, and then Illis dot. That's absolutely correct. But here with the subject terms, we just need to make sure that we are bringing each subject term onto its own line and getting rid of redundant lines. There is a full stop in the card here after 3391, but we would actually prefer that there isn't a full stop after that accession number, but this is correct. That's the standard notation. So I'm just, from top to bottom, I'm just doing a quick click at the end of each row, looking for trailing spaces and rechecking visual scan from top to bottom. Have I got the right spacing between elements? And yeah, so in here, I've got the correct single space between the full stop. And it doesn't matter that there's full stops here. That can save. So I'm going to click done on this one. This one hadn't actually been completed, so I'm going to click done. And so that's the standardization work on that particular item. So I'll just spend a bit more time working through some other QA steps in the pamphlets series. My experience has been that the pamphlets are the ones where there is often some non-standard notation that needs extra attention. So I'm just going to keep going by using the arrow here, just to look for things that might need a bit of QA. Yep, I can see something here. So it looks to me like in this one, there's a comma there, which is an indication that this should really be being treated as one line of text. So I'm going to bring this information up here. That summer fall 1989 helps distinguish this item, this particular issue, from any other copies of the Gay and Lesbian Map and Guide of Manhattan that we might have. So trailing space. They've got the call number correct. Gay and Lesbian Map and Guides. I think let's reproduce what we see on the card. I'm going to put an ampersand back in there. Then we've got the publishing imprint. They've got this correct. There's colon space, comma space after the publisher. Full stop follows the year. There's extra descriptive information. It's fine for that to stay on the same line. It's extra information about the format, if you like, of this particular publication. That's on its own line, which is good. The subject notation's got the correct spacing and the correct numbering. There's a redundant space here, so I'm going to close that up. And there's no full stop at the end of these accession numbers, which is great. So This one only needs a small amount of tidying up, but the focus there was on bringing things up into the right line and closing up gaps around, spaces around abbreviations and their full stops. I'll click save here and I'll keep going. Try this next one. This one, they've done a good job of recognizing the text in the call number at the top. That's all on one line. I think that information about the year should go up there. It helps distinguish this item from another edition, and we've still got publication information on the following line. So I think that is fine for that to sit there. It does look like a full stop in the card, but that is a useful, distinctive title. The year, I think, appeared somewhere on the cover as a subtitle. Helps distinguish this year's guidebook from the next year's, if you see what I mean. So the publication information here is not quite following the right standard publication information. It had a comma there on the card, but we like our QA people to fix that so that there's a colon following the place of publication. This next line looks fine, but I think this would actually benefit from having a space after that abbreviation. CA stands for circa or about. 80p is 80 pages. It's illustrated and mostly adverts, but here illust is an abbreviation. So it should really have a full stop after that. Adverts has been abbreviated, and that ends in a full stop. So anyway, so that's fine. Here we've got Gay Travel and Tourism, North America, and then I title. Now, it's not uncommon for the title to actually be spelled out. You will sometimes see this title tag just looking like that, which means that the title that appears at the top, Mark Tours North American Gay Hotel Guidebook, would be used as the title entry. But here, what the cataloger is trying to indicate is that the title entry actually appears under N for North American rather than under Mark Tours, because there is already a main entry for Mark Tours. So this just helps, it's just a way of making sure that this item can also be found under the heading North American Gay Hotel Guidebook. This notation here for the accession number is fine, but let's finish off with a closing bracket. And NO dot. This is standard. Copy space whatever number is standard. And for that information to be enclosed within brackets is also another useful standardization or pattern. So I'm going to click save here. Move on to another card. Similar issue here with this one. There's a comma at the end of a line, which should be a bit of a red flag. There's more information to follow that would need to come up to make it one line. It's okay that this sort of describes a particular edition as part of the title information. If this sort of 1990 edition started with a full stop, then we might force that onto a new line. If there was a full stop preceding that, we might force that onto a new line. But when it's a comma here and there's no other punctuation until you get to the full stop, let's consider that as one whole line of information describing the title of this document or this publication. Everything here is looking good. subjects got the right spacing, the right numbering, they're all on one line, the correct formats for publication and print. So click Save. Right, I'm going to scoot back to the home page for this particular, and what I'm doing here by using the pages, it's just allowing me just to scoot through and look for something that might be a little bit more unusual that I can focus on. Let's try this one for the purposes of this demo. Got to get into the correct mode. Yeah, okay. So this one is looking good. What I wanted to point out is that this alphabetical sequence that's part of the call number can be anywhere from just one letter to 2 letters, 3 letters, or 4 letters, very occasionally 5, very occasionally 2 words. I have seen one where it was actually 2 words, which is fine. But remember that we'll also need to distinguish it sometimes between the title. So this is all fine here. This call number component, there's mean is, I think, a description of who's produced this item. And then we've got the title, publication and print. And then there's more descriptive information. This would benefit here, I think, from having a full stop at the end. It's a little bit, it's a sort of a short sentence. So let's put a full stop at the end. And I'll click Save. Let's see what might be next door. Okay. Yeah, this has not too many problems. The Leatherman and call number's fine. That's fine. Catalog number 2. Catalog number 2. Yep, this is fine on its own line. We've got the publication information next. Place of publication followed by a colon, the publisher followed by a comma, and then date information. So ND is short for no date. And it's in square brackets, which, because there is no, when you've got to, if you can't see an obvious date on the cover of the document itself or inside it, there's a long-standing convention that we use square brackets when we've added the information about what we've found. But in this one, we don't know what the date is. So this notation is fine. It is more common for that to be closed up though in .d. So we'll leave it like that. And that appears to be what's reflected here. There is no spacing inside that. So that'll be the more common pattern here, n.d. or n full stop, d full stop. 16 pages illustrated, both got their abbreviations in full stop. There's a preceding space before a full stop, so we want to close that there. Here, there's no full stop after the accession number, which is perfect. So I'm going to click Save there. What's next door? This one. This is looking good to me. Yep, that look. This is just a bit sort of a slightly more fulsome. This information here is information about who created this item, and then but that is mimicked also in the title of it, which is fine. And this helps us distinguish this edition from any other, so that can stay in the title. West Hollywood, that look, 1985. Yeah, this information I want to keep in the title because it makes it clear when it was produced and what it is. This extra information in square brackets has been added by a catalogue. It's just extra useful descriptive information. The publication and print looks fine. That information follows the standard pattern. An extra description. The subject is on its own line. It's got an appropriate spacing there. There's no full stop after the extension number. So I'm going to click save there. So I think I'll end this particular video here as a way of sort of concluding at the point where we've done the key kind of standardization QA steps. There are others that are sometimes a bit more obscure, but I'll need to sort of track down a few of those and add them to a second video with examples. But this particular video helps people getting involved in the sort of the really critical QA steps. Gives you a starting point for that. So thank you.